Good evening, everyone. How are you all?
Good, Cheryl. How you doing?
I'm doing good. In my packet, I don't have pages 21 through 28. Well, I have them, but they're the quitclaim deed all over again.
Miss English, this is Michelle.
Yes, ma'am.
I sent out a corrected.
Oh, that's what that was.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, let me put y'all on hold.
Get your life together.
I know, right? I only need one job instead of 5.
Evening, everyone.
Hey, Mr. Pugh.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Pugh.
Hey, Mr. Pugh, how are you? Excuse me, Councilman Pugh.
How you doing, ma'am? I owe you a phone call. I apologize. I got caught up in the office.
Oh, I'm still in the office, so I'm not on the next committee meeting, but I will have it on my phone as I'm driving home.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, how are you doing, Councilwoman Tracy?
I'm great. I'm just going to check my roll here.
Okay.
Everybody's here. We have 100% participation today at DNS. I have 5 o'clock. So I will call today's meeting of the Development and Services Committee to order. Miss Only, are you on the phone? Sorry, I
Yes,
didn't
ma'am.
see you.
I
Okay,
am.
would you call the roll for us, please?
Pugh.
Here.
Horatio.
Here.
Barron.
Here.
English.
Present.
Newton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from the February 23rd meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Move to approve.
Okay,
Second. I guess.
thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the minutes from February 23rd. Are there any changes to the minutes? Hearing none, I'll ask Miss Only to call the roll for approval of the minutes.
Pugh.
Yes.
Horatio.
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
English.
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item is the adoption of our agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda for today?
Move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Does staff or anyone have any changes, additions, or deletions to the agenda?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Only, will you call the roll for the approval or the adoption? Hold on, did somebody speak up?
Yeah, Bill Malinowski, Madam Chair.
Hi, Mr. Malinowski. I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you earlier.
That's right. Just so that everyone knows on your agenda that the item 4B had the incorrect pages, had the incorrect information on the pages shown on what I originally received. And the clerk sent out some new information today that had the correct info that belonged under that item.
Thank you. Yes, that was, I had to do a double take when I first started looking through my packet. So thank you to the clerk for sending out the revised packet for this afternoon. Any other, is there anything else before we vote on the agenda? All right, hearing none, I'll have Miss Only call the roll.
Pugh.
Yes.
Horatio.
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
English.
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That brings us to item 4, which are the items for action. 4A is the ordinance authorizing quitclaim deed of Olympia alleyway to contiguous landholder, Hendley 104 Alabama Street. That can be found in pages 13 through 20 of our agenda. This is a District 5 property, and I will move to approve this.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments from council?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Newton.
Thank you. I feel like we discussed this in some format before, but could you just remind me why the property owner or the owners of the contiguous property were requesting the deed?
Why they were reflecting the deed? I just believe that this was an alleyway that they no longer wanted as part of the property. Are there any updates from staff on this item?
Ms. Horatio, I'll be glad to speak to the general issue if that would help.
Sure. Yeah, that would
okay.
be helpful. Thank you.
Ms. Newton, so back in 1983, we passed an ordinance regarding these Olympia alleyways. At the time, they're all platted on a plat of the area back, I can't even remember, it was in the 30s or something. And but they were never really granted to anyone. They're not listed on anyone's deed. They're not listed as a county right of way. And so they hang out there. No one has the actual right or obligation to maintain them. So what the county did back then was basically pass a general ordinance saying, if you ask, we'll deed these things, we'll deed you half of the right of way that connects to your property, so that you can back your property line up. You can, just maintain it without anybody worrying about it, do whatever you need to do. So it's really it's an interesting thing, because we don't even claim to have any right in it, but we'll give you anything that we may have, basically, if there's any sort of public dedication involved in this, the county will give away their right to it, so that the property owner can then claim it on their deed and use the property in whatever way they like.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. That is so much better than any explanation I could have given for this. Yeah, it is an older ordinance and just kind of unusual. Okay, are there any other questions or comments on this 4A? All right, hearing none, I'll have Ms. Only call the roll to approve the quitclaim.
Pugh,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Barron,
yes,
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. So item 4B is approval to proceed with the railroad crossing closure on Walter MacArthur Road. That can be found on pages 21 through 30 of our agenda. For this item, I would love if staff could give us just a little background on this item. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So I'll start and I'll have DPW fill in. But what you find in your packet is information associated with a railroad crossing that has had some dangerous activity that happened, some crashes that were concerning to the community. The area that's in question is in Mr. Malinowski's district. He is familiar with the area. But basically, there are two sections of railroad crossings, and the section that is being requested to be changed or closed is a section where there's an accident not too long ago that made the public news, where there was 3 individuals who were involved in a serious incident. And since that time frame, and maybe some time before that, there has been state level concern as well as railroad and county conversations about this particular piece of land that is now being requested to be closed at a railroad crossing that does not have the best visibility in terms of what you would generally expect to be at a railroad crossing, for precautions, from people being aware that there's a locomotive headed in your direction and to be watchful. So in your packet, you have a combination of information that includes a notice from the representative that represents that area outside of the council member, but the state representative. You also have information from the railroad that talks about their willingness to close this particular railroad crossing, and so much as that they're willing to actually provide the county with some funding as a part of this closing. So with that being said, I'll certainly let Mr. Maloney or the county engineer, Stephen Staley, provide more details, but that's the general information related to this particular railroad closing and staff's request to approve the closing.
Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
Mr.
We have
Brown.
Mr. Staley here as well, who's been working on this with the neighborhood as far as putting out notices. So he does have some feedback on that. Lynn MacArthur Road will remain open. It's a nice flat crossing where you can see across the tracks. You can see either a train coming or vehicles on the other side of the crossing. And it's also a through road beyond the neighborhood. Walter MacArthur is a loop that comes off of Lynn MacArthur, goes over the tracks, and both of these connect to Highway 76. I drove Walter MacArthur this past summer. And when you go up over the tracks, you can't see the road down below. So I was just hoping when I went over the tracks, I had my car in the right angle to hit the road when I came over the other side. So that is what is the dangerous crossing that is going to be closed. The railroad will take care of obliterating the piece of road that's between the railroad tracks and Highway 76, and also the actual crossing itself. The county would just kind of clean up anything to create that loop or something for the dead end of Walter MacArthur accessing private property.
Right. Seeing as how Mr. Malinowski is here, Mr. Malinowski, would you want to speak to this before we take any action on it?
No, I'm fine with it. I believe that Mr. Maloney and everyone else gave the correct info. The only question I had is after the county does the fix that was just referred to by Stephen Staley. Was that Stephen talking or was that you, Mike?
That was me, sir.
That's what I thought. Anyway, after the county fixes it, where does the balance of that money go, provided there is some?
I'll let Stephen talk to that. We do have a force account and go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's an incentive for us to get rid of a crossing, and they're doing this all across the county, trying to get rid of these substandard crossings. It will probably cost Public Works around $2,000 to construct a gravel turnaround on the northwestern end of the rail.
Stephen, let me interrupt you, Stephen. Let me interrupt you. I don't need all those details. I just wanted to know if there is a balance of the $10,000 when everything's finished, where does it go? What part of?
I guess that's up to council. I guess we would like it to come to Public Works, of course.
Okay, thank you.
I would be happy to support that if council does need to weigh in on it. Okay, hearing all the information, is there a motion on this item?
Move to approve.
Madam Chair,
Oh, yes, Ms. Newton.
I'll second it for discussion. I just had a quick question.
Okay, great. So it's been moved and properly seconded, and Ms. Newton has her hand raised. And I'm sorry, I'm running this meeting from my phone, and so I'm not seeing all the hands raised. So apologies. Don't be afraid to speak up if you need to speak up.
No problem. And Mr. Maloney, I think you answered part of my question, because when I look at the pictures, just on a flat picture, visibly, I don't really see a difference between the two. So it was helpful for me to understand how they differ. I was curious to know, just for my information, what was the origin of this request? Who is asking for it? Did the community ask for it? Did the representative ask for it? Did staff ask for it? It doesn't matter if it's for something that needs to be done. I just was trying to figure out for my information.
Yes, ma'am. This is Stephen Staley. It originated from the CTC. They got a lot of calls coming in from concerned citizens, as well as the representative from the area.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Bill Malinowski, if I might add to that, please.
Sure.
Yeah, Ms. Newton, there had been an accident with a train hit a vehicle, and regardless of why it happened, the fact was that's what started the ball rolling for people complaining, wanting to have this closed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further from council? Right. It's been moved and seconded to approve this item. Ms. Only.
Pugh,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That brings us to item 4C, the approval of Summit Ridge Drive sidewalk project. That can be found in pages 31 through 34 of our packet. Is there, I'll ask for the motion first. Is there a motion on this item? Okay. Would council like to hear from staff about this item before we entertain a motion?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. Mr. Staley or Mr. Maloney, would you like to speak to this item, please?
I can. Okay, oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
No.
Director.
No, I was just going to say, sir, you have the background on this and all the work that went into it.
Okay, yeah, I don't, this is a area kind of up in the northeast part of the county, and very traveled. Lots of folks live up there. There's one little piece of sidewalk. It's about 1,050 feet that is missing between connecting a lot of neighborhoods, a lot of schools and parks. And we did a project out there maybe 3 years ago where we brought some existing sidewalks and into ADA compliance. And we noticed this then, and we were hoping to get this one approved. And you know, for the little bit of funding it's going to take, it's going to make a big difference for that area. And so basically we had about 7 sidewalk projects come to us this past year. And we have a process where we go through and rate each one of them based on lots of factors, connectivity to schools, connectivity to parks, amount of average daily traffic. And once we rated these 7 roads that came through there, this one here on Summit Ridge was by far the most important at this time. And I think you can see if you look on page 34, you can see the section there that we in yellow that we would be adding.
So having heard from staff, I'll open the floor. So Ms. Newton has her hand raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I always have questions when sidewalks come up. So 2 questions. One question, just a general question. On page 30 of our agenda, you have listed all of the roads that were requested in 2020. And so my first specific question is, what happens when you start looking at the 2021 list? Do you start again? Do they fall behind the 2021? So there's this constant running list, or are they reevaluated every time based on the criteria that you mentioned for safety, et cetera? So that's the specific question. And then the general question would be, if you could just, you know, for the citizens' benefit, describe what is what is the funding source, specifically CTC, that we're using for sidewalks, and what the process is for requesting sidewalks, because there are many, many communities that would appreciate to have additional sidewalks for safety, et cetera. And I think it would be helpful just to refresh on that process. So thank you. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank
Okay,
you.
yes, ma'am. Yeah, I'll start with the general question first. To request a sidewalk, it's just a call in to the Ombudsman's office, and they direct those calls to us at Public Works, and we start the list of the beginning of the year, towards the end of January. And then when it gets towards the end of the year, we'll evaluate them and then make a recommendation. One of the first council meetings of the next year. There's the funding sources that we go for on these are CTC funds. That's kind of what we're looking for approval from you all tonight, is to let us go to the County Transportation Committee and ask for request funding from them on this. And then finally, the specifics is, and I can send you a document That's like a rating sheet. It has about, I think, 4 or 5 items on it, where you can rate them from 1 to 5. Is there a school nearby? Is there a park nearby? Is there safety concerns? Is it connecting lots of citizens to each other? And I can send you that if you like. Basically, we go through in-house and rate them, and then whoever has the highest rating, that's the one we use.
Thank you. And I've stated this before, and I understand that the funds are limited with CTC funding. What I would love to see, understanding that we have a process where we evaluate the requests that come in. I would also, similar to what I advocate for roads, say, hey, is there also a more proactive identification process? Because there may be citizens, and I'm sure that there are, who don't know that all they have to do is call and say, I would like a sidewalk. And so there are many communities that I know that I've heard from who have concerns about traffic and safety, et cetera. And so I will make sure to tell them to request it. But just as we look at these areas, it would be great, whether maybe we need to do a communications effort to talk about sidewalks, which would be complicated because I know that the funding is limited. But I wish that there was a way, other than the few people who come requesting sidewalks, not saying that they don't deserve sidewalks if they meet the criteria. I just know that there is a really great demand, and I'd like to make sure that we're evaluating that all across the county appropriately. So that would be my request, if there's a way to do that. And that is the end of my comment. So thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Staley.
Thank you. And I see Mr. Malinowski, but I want to hop in here before I go to that, because as a follow-up to Ms. Newton's question, also, not only do people need to know that they should call the ombudsman, they would need to know, for instance, they would be lucky enough to know who Ms. Newton is to be able to ask her about a sidewalk. So there are probably people in our districts who don't even know who we are, much less who the ombudsman is. And I will also ask, can staff post the 4 or 5 items for the rating sheet? Can that be posted publicly?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. It's public information. We follow the CTC guidelines that was set up long ago, but I definitely can send that out to PIO.
That could be a great, I think that would be, could make a great campaign, or a piece of a campaign. Okay, Mr. Malinowski, sorry to keep you waiting.
That's fine. Thank you, Madam Chair. 2 quick questions for Mr. Staley. 1, does it make any difference in these ratings if it's a state-controlled road or a county road?
Yes, sir, it does. There's more rating. You get more points for a county road.
Okay, thank you. And number 2, what happens if CTC does not approve this grant for this road?
Well, at this time, I know our public works budget couldn't withstand a sidewalk project. So we would probably delay it to next year unless my director can talk about that.
No, that's
Yes,
fine.
sir.
That gives me an answer. I'm fine. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Newton.
can I ask a follow-up question, because I realized that my other question actually wasn't answered as part of my first question. So my question was, there's a list of roads that were requested in 2020, and presuming that we don't get to all of those roads, what happens with the roads that are requested in 2021? Do those roads then go to the bottom of the list? Do the roads get reevaluated every time so that the top scoring road is the one that gets proposed? How does that get handled? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Good
ma'am.
question. I'm sorry about, thank you for re-asking that.
I'm sorry I missed that earlier, but yeah, it's a running list, and they would be reevaluated each year with the new ones that came in.
So the priority order that we have here now might not be the priority order when you look at 2021, because new ones would come in for evaluation.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I'm looking for hands. Are there any further questions on this item? All right. I don't believe we have a motion on the floor yet. Is there a motion on this item? How about I will move. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I just have one more question. And it's for staff. Again, tell me the portion that it's connecting.
Yes, ma'am. On page, let's see, page 34. If you look at that map, you'll see it's connecting Bombing Range Road all the way up and tying into Palmetto Park, which I believe is part of Lake Carolina. I'll have to verify that, but if you look at our GIS map, you can really see the magnitude of what that connects. And I can definitely send that to you.
No, I'm familiar with it. I was just trying to picture it in my mind. Yes, sir. So with that, I move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Awesome. I see Miss Newton has her hand raised again.
I'm sorry, this is my last question, but just looking at this and thinking about this again, this is a question for staff. Considering that Lake Carolina is a newer development, and I know that generally speaking, when sidewalks get installed as part of a new development, that's something that kind of happens at the discretion of the developer. Or the community, I'm curious to know what, if any, input our planning staff provides. So is there something where when you're looking at a new neighborhood and you're looking at traffic, are there laws or ordinances that say, hey, developer, we encourage you to put in a sidewalk, or you're required to put in a sidewalk for this traffic count, so that you're not then coming back? And Lake Carolina is not new, but certainly it's not as old as some communities before you had more traffic and more sidewalks.
Ms. Newton, Clayton Voignier, Community Planning and Development Director. I've got Brian Crooks with us, and I believe he may be able to speak to some of that. But I will just say first generally that we review the site plans for compliance with the land development code. So as long as they're compliant, I don't necessarily know that there are requirements for certain sidewalks based on traffic conditions, but I will let Mr. Crooks speak more detail to that.
Mr. Voignier, I think you generally summed that up. I believe that would probably be a better question for Mr. Price to address, and have that through the land development process. And I think he may be joining us now, actually.
Yes, I'm here to answer the questions for you. So, as part of the site plan submittal process, and according to the Richland County Land Development Code, sidewalks are required. There are certain situations when, just due to non-connectivity with other sidewalks, or in some cases you could just say it just doesn't make sense to have these here, we will get confirmation from the South Carolina Department of Transportation if it's going to be on a state road, and also work with our Richland County Public Works Department, particularly the county engineer, to determine if sidewalks are warranted at a particular development.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. That's all good to know. So we have a motion on the floor to approve this item. Is there any further discussion? Let me just look through. Okay, I don't see any hands raised. Ms. Only, will you call the roll for approval of this item?
Pugh,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you all. That is the end of our action items. Number 5 on our agenda are items pending analysis, no action required. The first item is the motion to evaluate affordable housing options. There's no update on that. The second item is the motion to direct the county attorney to work with the administrator on the absentee landlord ordinance. We don't have an update on that this week. And then the third item, 5C, is the motion to amend the county's current ordinance in order to allow lighting on Broad River Road. And we do have an update on that, which are responses to council inquiries regarding that motion. Is there anything that staff would like to let us know on the committee regarding that item besides just what the responses are on paper?
Madam Chair, we don't have any additional information to add other than what's included in your packet.
Okay, great. Thank you. So that item is for information only, and hopefully we can take that one up at a later date. Item 6 on our agenda is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All right. It's been moved and seconded for adjournment. Miss Only, will you call the roll?
Pugh,
Yes.
Horatio,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion
All right.
passes.
See some of y'all at 6 o'clock and definitely at 7. Have a good rest of your hour.